Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. Kevin here from the Reuters. Can I ask Mr. Chen? Coming back to Singapore, to contest elections. I mean, the slides say the broad ideals about having, say, an alternative and say greater variety in the Singapore political scene. Are there any specific issues in Singapore that bothers you, which perhaps has prompted you to step forward, say now and not 4 years ago, or perhaps 4 or 5 years into the future?
Well, what we're talking about here really affects all the policies that get made, Kevin, in Singapore. I had given the example before of our immigration and population policy. Arguably, the most significant policy in recent years that had implications for Singaporeans in terms of jobs, wages, housing, property prices, transportation, schools, living space, culture shock. And yet, do we have robust parliamentary debate or discussion on this, on the 6.5 million of planning parameter that was used apparently for the formulation of the policy? I mean, when did this become a policy? What was our policy? Has it been changed? It would help, I think, if we had more discussion, more debate, greater transparency before the relevant policies were put into effect.
Mr. Ma said that new flats are affordable. You mentioned that 8 in 10 couples who bought new flats last year used 25% or less of their salaries. 8 in 10 couples who bought new flats last year used 25% or less of their salaries to service their mortgage. Can we get a response to that?
He's asking whether, we're talking about whether affordability of the flat, is it? I think I got into the issue enough. I think my chairman just answered some questions yesterday. I think it's better for Singaporeans to judge for themselves. I think we can argue until the cow come home. When we say this is not affordable, Mr. Ma says it's very affordable. So I think Singaporeans have to judge whether it's affordable and to what extent it's affordable, and whether 30 years of financial burden is affordable. And perhaps if this is affordable, then how about raising it to 50 years? More affordable, right? So I think we better leave it to Singaporeans. So I think we're safe enough. I think let Singaporeans decide.
Mr. Chen, can I just follow up on this question?
Yes.
Is your wife a Singaporean and also your boy is 11 now? Do you have plans, he's a Singaporean, do you have plans to do national service as a Singaporean?
My wife is a U.S. citizen. My boy we expect to move back to Singapore. So like me, we'll be going to a school in Singapore, and he would when he's 18 do his national service. I had a choice, and he, because of his mother, I think it's entitled to American citizenship. But so it's a decision he will need to make when he's 18. I will certainly hope that he will decide to do what I did, but I expect I will leave it up to him.
I'm Suha from Channel News. I have a question in Mandarin for Mr. Lau and Mr. Chen. 罗先生，这是你们今天做一场就是候选的介绍会。那么星期三就是提名日了，可以总结一下你们至今就是候选人的素质，或者是什么话想跟我们说？那么陈先生就是你本身在国外生活了很多年，那么你们的候选人也有说过，过去几年呢，就是新加坡就是面临很大的改变。那你觉得你对新加坡了解有多深？那可以帮选民怎样改变他们的人生？
我回答比较长一些啊。
我们今天是最后一场介绍候选人。这一届大选，共产党所推出的候选人都是比较成熟的候选人。那么大家也看到，我们的候选人都有诚意，也让大家清楚知道他们的背景、他们的履历，各位也可以公开的问他们问题。所以我们不像行动党我说的，我在背后，工人党当然身为反对党，我们的候选人会面对严峻的挑战，不像行动党有他的部长啊，还是竞选区呢，可以就可能比较容易一点的走入国会，走进国会。所以呢，我希望新加坡选民呢，好的看一看我们工人党的候选人，希望新加坡选民有工人党候选人的机会，希望我们会迈向第一世界国会。I don't think I will translate that into English because I think I have a problem of switching and to think of what I say and translate at the same time. I think you go ahead.
The last bit was towards the first word. I'll give my answer in English if you don't mind, so that I guess more people hear.
I need a Chinese soundbite. Can you do it?
This is soundbite.
For Chinese viewers, you can understand me.
I see. Well, we'll think about it afterwards. The question was, with my being away for so many years, how would I expect to identify with or understand the problems of my potential constituents? I've certainly given it some thought. Maybe the easiest way is to share with you the things that went through my head as I thought about this. At first, I was quite worried when I read in the papers that I had been away from Singapore for 40 years out of the 50 that I've been alive. And I was a little relieved when I realized that 10 of those years I was in diapers and shorts and didn't really know what was going on. So that didn't make too much of a difference, I hope. After my ROD from the army, it was not as if I sat down and I decided that, oh, I will leave my home for 30 years and come back after that, or not come back after that. My parents, they were here and they are still here. This is our home. My sister is here. She's my only sibling. And her family is here. This is home to me. When I ROD'd, it was really that one decision that had to be made then, and that had to do with going to university, which university to go to, whether there was scholarship to go to that university, whether there was financial aid to enable me to attend university, and I made my decision on that basis, following my years at Harvard. Same sort of things happened. Availability of scholarships, educational opportunities, financial aid, opportunities for professional training, and things like that. When I decided, after many years of schooling, on a profession, and became a business lawyer, a corporate lawyer, who focused on capital markets transactions. That decision also led to my spending quite a bit of time away from it, because that's where the professional opportunities are. That's where the professional challenges are. So I've spent all this time abroad, but that doesn't mean I've stopped being Singaporean. And many of us, overseas Singaporeans, and there's quite a number of us, we keep in touch with what's going on in Singapore. It's a big part of our how we feel about ourselves, that we're Singaporeans. And while we're not here, we are playing a role overseas as ambassadors for our country. And the sense of being Singaporean, you know, for many of us, is enhanced rather than diluted as we stay overseas and we interact with people. We tell them about Singapore. We try to project a good image of Singapore. And I ask myself, so will I be able to understand a resident if he has some questions about government policies in Singapore? And when I read this letter that was sent to me by the government, as it was sent to all Singaporeans, I felt more confident of my ability to do that. Here's a letter from the Ministry of Finance. It's Grow and Share. It's addressed to all Singaporeans, Chen, and my address in Singapore. So I'm a Singaporean with a Singapore address. If the government needs to get in touch with me, they can do so easily. So I feel reassured. Dear Sir, as part of the budget 2011, you are eligible to receive the personal benefits in Table 1, and your household may also enjoy the benefits of Table 2. Growth dividend, I ask myself, do I know what that's all about? I do. CPF, MediSave top-up, yes, I know that only people who are 45 years old or older are eligible for that. Table 2, household benefits. Radio and TV license fee, I know what that's about. For HDB households, now, we haven't lived in an HDB flat for over 30 years, but before that, we had lived in public housing built by the Lim Yew Hock government in Alexandria. And we had lived in HDB flat, in Toa Payoh. But for HDB households, you save rebate. I know what that's about. It's about utilities. S&CC rebate. I know what that's about. That's service and conservancy charges, rental rebate. And for households with children, child development credit and EduSave top-up. One is for children below the age of 6, The other is for children in primary and secondary schools. I felt more confident that I know what Singaporeans have to deal with. The second paragraph, as you have signed up previously, your growth dividend will be credited to your POSB bank account. Makes sense. So, I know enough to have signed up previously, and I have the POSB account. So, for residents who don't, I'm able to give them good advice. Finally, the letter comes from Ms. Chan Lai Fong, who's the Perm Sec for Finance and Performance in the Ministry of Finance. As luck would have it, I know Ms. Chan. I had called upon her, in her office a few years ago. So if the residents have questions that I can't answer, any questions, I'll be able to, and I will try to get in touch with Ms. Chan and find the answer. I don't think I'll be lost. I think I'll be a good MP. And don't forget, I'm not standing for election on my own. I'm standing to be elected as a Workers' Party candidate. We have a team. We have a party to serve the residents of our constituencies. But more importantly, this election is not about me only. It's about us. It's about our future. It's about the direction in which we would like Singapore to go. And here I am, imperfect as I am. I offer myself to you so that you have a choice. You have a say in your future.
You mentioned that 10 years ago you went to the old WP office and you only joined very recently. I know you mentioned that you felt you needed to get out there and do other stuff as well, but why such a big gap? I mean, I'm sure you could have joined any time in between if you really felt for it. And maybe why WP?
Sorry, can I just ask who
how many
you
from the Today newspaper?
From Today, okay. Well, thank you for that question. Yeah, I mean, you don't think about these things as if you've got this timeline in your head, that 5 years, then I'm going to do this, 5 years, then I'm going to do that. To be honest, actually, I was really thinking hard about whether I should practice for at least 5 years and then look at the next elections as the time to enter the political arena under the Workers' Party banner. But I felt, look, you've got to start somewhere. And if 5 years later, the circumstances may be so different. I may have gotten married, I may have had children, I may have had a wife who was going to divorce me if I joined the Workers' Party. Anything could have happened. But this felt right. I think this was the time. And I decided, yes, let's do it. I had a long, even the fact that I went to the headquarters in Jalan Besar 10 years ago tells you something about at least where my political affiliations lie. I think even at that point, as a young man, I think I was quite clear that what this country needs actually is more voices, more diverse voices in Parliament. And yes, you wanted to follow up with something?
Yeah, why in particular WP? I mean, at that point in time and maybe still now.
Well, at that point, you had Mr. Lau was in Parliament, and I actually was quite impressed by Mr. Lau in Parliament. And I mean, I'm not doing this because it's patronizing since he's on this table. But I mean, you have to understand the whole context. You're one person, and respectfully, Mr. Chairman as well. And you have to take on this whole PAP juggernaut. How do you do it? And I think the way he has managed himself has been a source of inspiration for a lot of Workers' Party members. And accordingly, even after him, Ms. Sylvia Lim as an NCMP, I think the quality of the leadership that the PAP provides, I beg your pardon, WP provides. Oh, no, do I say that? The quality of leadership that they provide tells you something about what sort of individuals you need in Parliament to bring us to a first world Parliament, to challenge the PAP. And I think that's really the answer to your question, why the WP? I think that's the standard which I can relate to. And beyond just the leadership, when I joined the party, of course this is only something you see when you're in the party. Organizationally, fantastic people. There's one gentleman standing right behind, at least he was behind just now, Chen, who's the secretary of the youth wing. And a few weeks ago we launched our manifesto. I came into this building about this shop house, I beg your pardon, maybe 2 hours before the manifesto launch. And Bernard was mopping the staircase. And this is the sort of commitment that we have from our party members. I mean, we are a small party, limited resources. And you have that quality, that level of commitment, and that's something very humbling. And you know, I respect all my party members for that. And I hope that answers your question. I think there's a follow-up question. I can't see your hand, Alex. Sorry. Alex.
Alex,
Yep.
follow-up question. There's a fairly meaty section in the party manifesto about civil liberties and the legal process. I mean, for example, I remember that there's quite a bit said about accused right to have legal representation as early as possible. There's a fair bit about how the death penalty should not be unless 2 judges concur and so forth. To what extent, Pritam, are these ideas of the Workers' Party driven by principle or driven by feedback from the ground? In other words, is the party proposing this in the absence of any demand among Singaporeans, or or have you sensed that this is really what Singaporeans want?
Well, Alex, the short answer to that would be, Singapore is not a monolithic country. I mean, you have different constituencies, different sort of demands. And to answer the question very specifically, I mean, did it come bottom up, or was this something internally raised by the party? I think it was a bit of both. And for that, actually, I'm willing to open the table for especially chairman and the secretary general, because we looked at this holistically from a party perspective. And we have lots of inputs coming in as to how we want to bring this thing forward. So, short answer is a bit of both.
Perhaps chairman?
I think in these areas that you mentioned in particular, of course, I think for civil liberties, there is a certain awareness among the Singaporeans about its importance. For the criminal justice side of things, I do find that there is still a need for more public education. And in that sense, Workers' Party also, we have to look at issues from various perspectives. And I would say that if we feel an issue is important enough, even if, say, there is still a need for further public education, we would want to take some lead on some of these issues. So in respect of criminal justice, we do look at international best practices and so on. That resonates with our beliefs, and we feel that even though the public as a whole, the awareness level may not be very high, I think it's also important for us to take the lead as well.